My kid's music teacher stole his song and gave it to another student, so I made sure everyone knew the truth. My son Ethan had been working on this piano piece for months. Every night after dinner, he'd sit at our crappy secondhand keyboard that I got from some garage sale for 50 bucks and play this melody he wrote. He called it Sky Falling because he said it sounded like what falling from the sky would feel like. The kid was 10, but he had this ear for music that honestly blew my mind. He'd written the whole thing out by hand on music paper, every note perfectly placed. His handwriting was messy as hell, but the music was beautiful, haunting even. He recorded himself playing it on my phone like 15 times until he got a version he was happy with. Then he submitted it for his school music project. Ethan was so proud of that song, he'd play it for anyone who'd listen. Our neighbors probably knew it by heart at that point. When he told me he was going to perform it at the spring recital, I marked my calendar and took the afternoon off work. The day of the recital came, and I was sitting in the school auditorium with all the other parents. I looked at the program and saw Ethan listed as a backup performer. That was weird because he'd been practicing for weeks, but whatever. Maybe they had too many kids who wanted to perform. Then the lights dimmed and this kid named Ryan walked onto the stage. He sat down at the piano and started playing. The first few notes hit me like a punch to the gut. It was Sky Falling, Ethan's song, note for note, exactly the same. I looked over at Ethan sitting with his class. His face went from confusion to this crushed expression that made my chest tight. He knew his song when he heard it, and he couldn't understand why someone else was playing it. Ryan finished and everyone clapped. The teacher, Mr. Davies, walked to the microphone and said, "That was a beautiful original composition by Ryan, titled Sky Falling." Original composition. My blood started boiling. After the recital ended, I found Mr. Davies by the piano. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "My son Ethan wrote that song. Why was Ryan performing it?" Mr. Davies smiled this awkward, dismissive smile. "Oh, Ethan's version needed too much polish. I gave it to Ryan because he's more technically advanced. Same idea, just cleaner execution." I stared at him. "You used my kid's original composition without giving him credit." He shrugged, like it was no big deal. "It's for the school, not a competition. It's really not that deep. Not that deep." This man just told me stealing my son's work wasn't that deep. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I gathered everything. Ethan's original handwritten sheet music with the date from 3 months ago, the recordings on my phone with timestamps, the email he'd sent to Mr. Davies submitting the project. I printed everything and put it in a folder. The next morning, I called the school and scheduled a meeting with Principal Martinez, the music department head, and Mr. Davies. When they asked what it was about, I just said it was regarding plagiarism in the music program. The meeting was 2 days later. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten to sue anyone. I just laid out the evidence on the conference table like I was presenting a case. "Here's my son's original composition from January," I said, showing them the handwritten music. "Here's his email submitting it for his project in February. Here are recordings of him playing it that are weeks old. And here's the program from yesterday's recital, crediting his work to another student." Principal Martinez looked uncomfortable. The music department head was flipping through the papers with wide eyes. Mr. Davies was sitting there like a deer in headlights. "If you want to keep encouraging young musicians," I said, looking directly at Mr. Davies, "maybe don't teach them that someone more talented can just take their work and get credit for it." The room was silent for a long moment. 3 days later, the school sent out an email announcing a correction and a second recital. They scheduled it for the following Friday and made Ethan the closing act. They also sent a letter home to every family explaining what had happened and how they were addressing it. Friday came, and Ethan walked onto that stage in his best shirt. He sat down at the piano and played Sky Falling again. This time, when the music faded and silence filled the auditorium, everyone stood up. The applause went on for what felt like forever. I'm moving to Spotify. Search Koala Reads and hit follow.